Wait for me, please. Please wait. It wasn't supposed to happen so fast. Not to us.
So we began this semester with an idea of how could we still successfully create live theater during a pandemic. And at Davidson College, we have access to this incredible, vast, evocative campus. So we thought about how we might be able to lead the audience through a driving experience of certain locations on campus and kind of blend a bunch of scenes together with some sort of unifying device. And knowing that this would be in the fall, I thought that zombie horror would be a really cool way for all of us artists to get together and create something that is personalized but also coheres under one kind of unified idea. So all of the directors involved here were tasked with coming up with some sort of Davidson lore or history to infuse into their zombie scenes. So I would love to hear from some of the directors now. Maybe I can turn to Ariel and ask you, how did you think about developing your piece for Ubi Orta Pestilentia?
Yeah, I can talk about the development process. This piece mainly started from like the parameters that I had of using chambers. And I remember a few years ago, I think when I was a sophomore, upperclassmen did this like disorientating and orientating Davidson tour. And that was really memorable. And the words I heard there about how Maxwell Chambers was an enslaver. And then especially looking forward to like discussions among campus of like, do we change Chambers' name? Is that erasing history now?
I found out like there was a big fire at Chambers, and I think fire a lot of the times like signifies a burning of the old establishment and bringing the new. And since we're just in time of change and reflection, I thought it would be a great medium to look into. This narrator is kind of summoning all the stories to become alive.
I thought it would be an interesting idea to incorporate zombies who I thought were kind of these souls from the past coming back again, telling a history nightmare, essentially. So that's how it really started. I think the projections and the movements came through with actors sharing ideas and like looking back into the archives, which the librarians provided, how people responded to the fire in Chambers and how metaphorically that became a new start of Davidson in 1920s. And I thought like what would a new start at Davidson at this time would look like, especially with such a big pivot point of COVID-19 on campus and also like Black Lives Matter on campus, which has been ongoing, but just has been shedded light onto it. And that really inspired me to look into what theater, an immersive theater could provide some perspective on.
Can we run it one more time so I can see it? Yeah. Would that tire you guys out too much? No.
Yeah. Ariel kind of spoke a little bit about being really driven by the location of the scene. And I would say that mine was more about genre. I am not super knowledgeable about the zombie genre as a whole, but I am familiar with kind of the comedic aspects of it. And that's kind of where I thrive anyway. And so I wanted to create a scene that involved some of that like lighthearted humor, since it, you know, what we're discussing is very tangentially related to the pandemic. So I kind of just wanted to have a little bit of that in there. So my first thought was, you know, what if we had a fight with severed limbs? And so everything kind of originated from that image. And then I, you know, was lucky to have some very fantastic and comedically inclined actors to help me make it happen.
So since a lot of this was really new for us as artists, I'm curious what sorts of challenges you all encountered as you were coming up with this piece, as you were rehearsing it, putting it together. James, do you want to give us some thoughts about the challenges?
Yeah, Steve, I certainly had a lot of challenges making this piece because it was, like you said, totally new. I was so jaded by everything the coronavirus was doing, which was totally unseen. I felt so powerless, so helpless against something because I couldn't see it. So I got the idea to have pretty much a zombie scene with no zombies in it. So for the first whole 3-4 minutes of the show, there are no zombies whatsoever. There's a girl and she's bitten by zombies, and there are 3 people and they're hunting her. They're all hunting her now because they know that she's been bit and she is filled with fear. And at the end of the scene, it's swarmed with zombies. The hardest thing to do, in my mind, was also the most important thing to do, which was to try to make this feel live. I wanted to play with distance, because the image of a silhouette moving across that golf course was truly evocative to me. And when you see that line of zombies standing there in the dark, it hopefully was really scary to see. The whole shtick of it was, like I said, to sort of combat that coronavirus fear of a threat unseen. So it was a totally different process than any of us were expecting. Rehearsals were all over the place, and adjusting to this new form of theater was something that was a major roadblock. I guess the only way to overcome that is through lots of rehearsal, through getting comfortable enough with the recorded track that you can improvise on the day. My actors were changing things up through every performance. People never got the same performance. I tell them to do different things, so each show had that little, I don't know, that special liveness to it, that little element of change that they could control as actors. But as soon as we got those audience members in there, as soon as we got working with them, then the show entirely came together. Here we got some great Walking Dead, Dawn of the Dead sort of scary zombies. It was a hell of a stage to put it up on. It was beautiful tonight. As soon as we got the audience there, everything just clicked for the actors and it all came together.
So during my choreography process for my scene, I also ran into a few challenges. So my background is not in theater at all. It's mostly in dance. So fortunately, I was able to work with a lot of dancers, mostly from dance ensemble, with my piece. In the beginning, most of my challenges involved either getting the dancers together at specific times to rehearse.
I thought that somehow maybe we could use Zoom for rehearsals, but that really hasn't working out very well. The scenes are so place-based. It's kind of important to, be able to show up and practice, in person. But I think it's just sort of a timing thing that will work out sooner or later. In the meantime, what I'm trying to do is just sort of record myself doing movement, then sending the recording to my dancers, and then asking them to send me a recording of them doing the movement. So, although we're not rehearsing together, we can sort of do it virtually, asynchronously.
Because of COVID, we've all realized that technology can be used a lot instead of meeting in person. We honestly didn't meet together as a whole group to rehearse as one until probably the first tech rehearsal. So I was glad that everything ended up coming together despite that.
One of probably the biggest issue I would say as of right now, though, is the weather. It's been raining a lot. And so since we're dancing outside in the grass, it's very, very muddy. And once we get our costumes set, I'm not super concerned because since my dancers are supposed to be undead brides, having that sort of muddy effect on the clothing, I think would be fine as long as it's okay to get the clothing all muddied up. But the main thing is just sort of the shoe option. I don't want to have to make them wear their bare feet in the mud. So maybe I'll make them wear socks, or hoping I can find a way to have them wear shoes. I'm not really sure. But there's something about having your bare feet in contact with whatever floor or surface you're dancing on that just makes the movement so much more authentic, I feel like.
So we ended up just using socks that were okay with getting, completely muddied up and all of that. But fortunately, the mud added a certain zombified element to the clothing that I had in my dancers, where they were all dressed in white, as you could see. So they ended up getting a lot more dirty and zombified as the performances progressed, which was really great. And although it was a challenge in the beginning, I think it added on to the effect, I think, of their movement overall.
Thank you all for speaking about some of the challenges. Maybe we can spend some time here just thinking about how it all came together in the end, because the show certainly did go on. So somehow, miraculously, this whole thing came together in the end. I felt like from the very beginning that this was an enormous community organizing challenge. All of us are separated more than we normally are because of COVID, and the effort of getting everybody to be in the same space took so much work. But when we finally reached the week of the show, everyone was there, everyone showed up, and we had sold out houses, which means something different when you're in a car. But we had it absolutely packed.
We had a very successful run of the show. Luckily, nothing got rained out. It seemed sort of like a miracle when we saw the forecast. But we were able to get a bunch of audience in, and we did a bunch of live streams, and I'm feeling really proud of it all. I am looking back and thinking about possibility, which seems sort of like a paradox during a pandemic of considering our artistic endeavors and thinking about everything that has opened up instead of everything that is closed down. Theater making for me is about inheriting a set of obstacles. Like, you've got to do it in this space with this amount of money for this number of people. And the list of obstacles might change in every show, but you're still, as a creative person, thinking about that entire list and how you can weave together something magical and something really meaningful for the audience as a result of those obstacles. So, this time, hey, there's a pandemic and we can only get so close together and we have to be outdoors and we have to wear masks. A lot of that might seem like a reason to shut down or to stop doing what we're doing. And after this show, I'm just like, wow, there's so much we can do. I feel a sense of gratitude that we were able to accomplish what we did, and also like, wow, next time we do it, here's where we can go further with this. Here is a way of telling a story that I'd never thought of before, that only occurred to me because of the obstacles I inherited for this particular production.
It was very gratifying to see how, a process that was sort of marked by feeling like we were so separate from one another, where certain members of the cast never met other members of the cast. Seeing how the kind of careful coordination that's happening remotely can lead to something that really is communal and really feels like we're in the same shared space together.
I hope the audience left feeling like there was a real sense of gathering, of community, of confronting the sort of most, prevalent issue that we have in our lives right now, which is a pandemic and a sense of us all moving apart from each other. I hope that was pushed against in this production, and that we were reminded that even in the worst of times, theater is eternal, and that we can all find ways to gather and sort of share our community's stories together. I'm also really grateful to Lorena and James, Ariel and Landon, my co-directors. I think something we've tried to do lately is reconsider the hierarchy of theater, that it's not just one person on top calling all the shots, but it's also, this is an art form that is built by an ensemble. And I feel like this was a real team effort. There was not one individual calling all the shots. It was sort of the best of what can happen when we have a group of people working together. And I think, for me, that's what theater is all about.
From the beginning, that I was not interested in this just being my own thing, but something that was shared equally amongst a group of theater artists. So I spent a little bit of time here and there watching my colleagues' work, but I did not impose too much. I left them to their visions and I supported where I could. But I'm very proud of all the work and the kind of individual artistry that everyone brought to the process. I thought it was really, really immediate, and everyone's personalities really shone through. Well, thank you all so much for chatting with me about our wonderful collaboration together. It was really fun going through the memories of our process and ultimately how we created something that was really unique and I think meaningful for the Davidson College campus. So thanks a bunch.